Hey Magic Weaver, welcome back to the Weaving Magic podcast. I'm your host, Alyssa Lilly, and I'm so excited to dive into a solo cast with you as it's been so long since we sat down and just chatted. And I'm currently at Tara's house, so if you're watching the YouTube video, you can see I have her background here, which is really fun, recording at her setup. So let's get into it. Today, I want to talk about a really amazing offering that I just finished creating, and it's completely free, about vanquishing your period pain or your cycle pain. I work as a cyclical living expert and self-embodiment coach, and my mission is to create a space where gender non-conforming AFABs like myself, I identify as they, them, and definitely I've struggled with things like gender dysphoria coming out, and as I learn who I am. And what I noticed is there's not a space where, if you're gender non-conforming, there's not a space where we're a priority. There's not a space where we can learn about our body in a way that makes sense to us. And so I have a 2-day free mini course available. You can check out my website. I'll have it linked below. Definitely encourage you, if you're wanting to learn about your body, especially if you're gender non-conforming, in a space where you're not going to be misgendered and it's not going to be over feminized, come join me over there. But I thought I would come on here and tell you a little bit about my story and how I got to where I am, and my purpose here on this earth to create this space. And so it's been, I don't even know where to start. It's been such a long journey. I identified as a woman and thought that was who I was for so long. 29 years of my life. It's a pretty long time. And one of the biggest problems I've had, even when I was trying to embrace my femininity and connect with the womb space or my cycle, I went to school, I got hormone health training and learning how our bodies work, and I struggled to really connect with it on a deep level. And I always felt like sometimes my skin didn't quite fit right. And I know it probably won't make sense to you unless it makes sense to you, but I really struggled with it. And, I knew this is something I was passionate about. If you've been following me for a while, you know that my business actually started out to help women, as I hadn't quite figured out quite who I was, right? So we're going to take a history trip through my life and how I got to being a hormone expert and why this journey even started. And I've struggled with things like PCOS and endometriosis and cycle pain and issues with birth control, all of it. I remember when I was really young, I believe I was around 16, I was having really, really bad cycle pains. And every time I'd go to the doctor, for a while, it was everything is normal. Just deal with it. Take some Midol, the same old lame fucking excuses that we always hear. And then they decided to put me on birth control. At the time, it was Depo, so it's a shot. That was supposed to either minimize or take my cycle away, which would take the pain away. And I had a really bad reaction to it. My uterus swelled. I had issues with weight and just being sick all the time. It just was a terrible, terrible experience. And they can't undo the shot once it's in your body, right? And so I told myself I was never doing birth control again because it literally felt like I was dying. And the pain that it was supposed to get away was just intensified without having the release of an actual, I felt like at least when I wasn't on birth control and I had a cycle, there was at least breaks in between the pain. But once I had taken the birth control, my body it reacted really terribly to it. And it felt like I was dying all the time. And of course, every time, I'm 16, every time I go to the doctor, it's all in my head. And, you're crazy, try this diet, go lose weight. I can't tell you how many times I've heard all of these different things. And every time I'd step on the scale, they'd talk about how, I am overweight according to BMI. And I've been the same size and same weight for a very long time. I mean, I fluctuate between about 10 pounds, but I'm still the same size, and I feel like I am not overweight. I look really good. I'm confident in my body. And just to constantly have to be told that I'm overweight or I'm fat, not that fat's a bad thing, but it's hard when you're going to the doctor, you're talking about your pain, and instead of addressing what could be causing your pain, it's just blaming, and that's not okay. So if you've experienced that, I just want to tell you, you are not crazy. Your pain is real. Cycle pain is not normal. We're not born to have cycle pain. Cycle pain is a way that our body is communicating with us, right? And a way that your body is telling you that it needs something, but we're not taught that. We're taught to try to take birth control or try to get rid of it or to take medicine to put a Band-Aid on it, and we ignore the root cause, which can lead to a lot of really detrimental things later. Anyways, I'm going to get off of my tangent here, back to my story. So, I just lived with the pain for a really long time because there was nothing that they told me. I'm going to put in air quotes. They told me there was nothing I could do. And that this was just the body I was stuck in, I guess. And then I met my partner many years later, 25. I think it was 25 when we met. And we approached the conversation of having kids. And I personally thought I was never going to have kids. I was told I couldn't have kids. And I have this amazing partner. And now the idea of it just sounded really good. And then a lot of feelings of unworthiness surfaced. Also, a lot of weird feelings at the time was gender dysphoria, but I didn't know that. I didn't have the words for it. I didn't really know what gender dysphoria was. So it was a mixed bag of emotions all happening at once that I didn't really know how to navigate. And I remember going to the doctor and being put on a bunch of fertility medication and combinations of medications to try and have a baby. I was told after I had the issue with birth control before with the depot that I wasn't going to be able to have kids. I was told with my PCOS that I wasn't going to be able to have kids. I was told with my endometriosis that I wouldn't be able to have kids, in the combination of all the things. But then when I went back and told them I was interested, they're like, well, we can try these fertility treatments. And of course, they poured a bunch of money into it, right? And none of it worked. And I had just come to terms with the fact that we were never going to have children. And oh boy, spoiler alert, were they wrong? Around this time, I started learning about my body and doing a lot of research. And I stopped taking the fertility medication because it made me feel terrible. I'm sure you're shocked by that. It wasn't a great experience. I was, hating my body even more. When you don't fully align with your meat suit and you're trying to have a kid and you're experiencing gender dysphoria and you're having cycles and you're dreading your cycles even more now because it's just evidence that you are incapable of doing what your body was born to do. So it's a mixed bag. I'm going to be real with you guys. It's an emotional roller coaster. And, I started learning about my body. I started doing research and I was like, we can't have kids. We can adopt, talking about different options. And I was like, if I'm going to have kids, I need to feel good in my body. So I started learning and I started transitioning the way that I was living my life. I hadn't quite gotten into cyclical living yet, but I was definitely eating for my body. And that doesn't mean dieting. That doesn't mean the fad diets. Throw that whole idea out. Those are all lies, and they're all built on the AFAB body. That's the assigned male at birth, and they don't work for us. If you ever notice people, a lot of AFABs, assigned female at birth, a lot of AFABs try these diets and we end up gaining weight. And it's because our body is literally not made for them. So I learned how to eat right and to move my body in a way that felt good for me and to feel good in my body. And I noticed that as I made these really small transitions in my lifestyle, subtle, and slowly integrated them over time, my cycle started getting regular. My pain started to decrease. It wasn't gone, but it definitely decreased. And then I got pregnant with my son, and it was just the craziest experience of disbelief, because I didn't think it was possible. And great pregnancy. He's here. He's, at the time I'm recording this, he's oh my gosh, he's 4 now. I was going to say he's almost 4. He just turned 4. I can't say he's almost 4 anymore. He's officially 4 now. It's been a while. So, I went to school around the time I was pregnant after I had him, to learn about our bodies, how it works, to learn about, I'm going to put again in air quotes, female hormone health, because everything is very feminized when you get into this industry. And I also, after having my son, had a really big cancer scare. It was terrifying having this tiny human that is dependent on my body, and learning that I could get cancer. I was having extreme dysplasia. If you don't know what that is, it's something, I don't want to be triggering, but it's something that can come up in like a pap smear, and cervical cancer is what they were worried about. I had to go through surgery. My husband had to drive me to the hospital because I almost bled out after being told I was being, too dramatic. I was fresh out of surgery. I had a LEEP procedure. And I was calling them. I was like, I don't feel good. Something's not right. And they kept pushing me off. And then finally it got really bad. And I was like, we're coming in. And my husband had to drive me to the ER as I was literally, there's a nice way to put it. I was literally bleeding out in the car. Our car was covered. It was insane and scary. And so it was around this time that I started learning about cyclical living and how it can completely reset your health, and learning about how your cycle is a window into your overall health of your body, not just a bleed once a month. The whole process is a window into your well-being. And that's mentally, physically, just all of it. And it was a little too good to be true. Like, I'm really, are you sure? I had my disbeliefs about it, and hesitations. But then I decided, you know what? I'm just going to go for it. The worst thing I can do is I can try it and I get healthy. Oh, damn. So I was also on my spiritual journey at this time, and doing a lot of shadow work and healing of trauma, because again, it's all intertwined. It'll all come full circle here in a second. But I started cyclically living, and I noticed shifts first emotionally. A lot was coming up for me. And what I learned now is we have a lot of our trauma and our emotions as AFABs stored in our hips and in our womb space. I'm trying to find better, we'll say sacral space. I'm trying to shift my language and how I speak about this so it's a little bit more approachable for those who may not identify as female. But our sacral space, our hips, our sacral, it's our lowest chakra, right, at our base. And when you start to live cyclically, you start to shake up things that have been stored and stuffed down for so long. And let me tell you, I had some deep ones. I have family wounds. I have trauma. I have the whole bag. So lots of emotional things came up, but it was all things that I needed. I was doing healing as a parent, a mother, unwriting all of the wounds. I was breaking the cycle of the trauma my family had put onto me so that I don't put it on my kids. And it was a beautiful sequence to watch unfold. Going back and reflecting now on how I was breaking these family trauma cycles, generational trauma in my life, and getting lighter every day and watching slowly as my body felt better. And honestly, as you cyclically live, you are teaching your body that it's safe. What happens when we use these methods, like a lot of these fad diets and exercise plans that are built on the AFAB body, right? There are seasons in our cycle where those types of plans are the opposite of what our body needs. And what we're communicating to our body during that time is that you're not safe and you need to store. And that's why we gain weight, because your body starts storing everything that you're eating because you're not living in alignment with what it needs during that phase or season of your cycle. And it's wild how when you do start living cyclically and giving your body what it needs, these emotions come up, not only because you're working on through your hips and you're working on your relationship with your body, but you're telling your body you're safe, which is telling your soul it's safe. And it's time to unlock these emotions that are surfacing. And it's time to release the pain, because what a lot of us don't know, and again, I could go on tangents for days about all of this, but the emotions that we store in our body and the trauma that we store in our body, it manifests as symptoms. And it, as you navigate through it, your symptoms could get worse before they get better. That's because you're physically moving that trauma out of your body. And, I wish they would do more studies on this. There are some studies, but they're very light, because the research into the AFAB body, a lot of times we take out AFABs who have a cycle because we're too much of a quote unquote variable. That's why a lot of the diet and exercise plans are designed for the AFAB body or post-menopausal AFAB body, because they take us out of the equation because we're too much of a variable, because our cycle, hormonal cycle, is 28 to 35 days, whereas the AFAB cycle is 24 hours. They reset every day. Much easier to come up with a routine to plan to market, right? So living in alignment with your cycle. I lost my train of thought, but that's okay. It'll come back. It is a full body experience. And I think that we need to talk about it more in these spaces for gender non-conforming AFABs. So again, I created my free course. It's 2 days, but I give you both the videos at once. You can watch them at whatever pace you want, to really dive into a lot of the myths about the AFAB body that are untrue, and diving into methodologies that I created and designed for our body based on my research on all of these studies. So I encourage you again to go check it out, because it's really good. I'm very proud of myself. Many years in the making. Oh yes, let's rewind and go back to my story. Tangents. But it's all juicy and good, and I'm excited to chat with you about it. So my son, I had the cancer scare. I started living cyclically, moving these emotions out of my body, starting to feel better in my body. I think that was the trail I was on. It's not only was I healing emotionally, but I was healing physically. And I feel like it was so subtle. I didn't notice that all of it was happening at once. And I remember after I had my procedure and had a very life-threatening situation come about, that was the biggest release of my life. It was an experience. I don't even have words. ended up healing it pretty well. They had to do some extra procedures on me, but we ended up getting through it. And I was going in for colposcopies. I don't know if I've had to experience those as an AFAB, but they are excruciating. And it's wild to me that they don't offer us pain relief during a procedure like that. They quote unquote numb the area, but they're literally taking this tool, and it looks like a lot. I mean, if you're watching the YouTube video, you can see my hand. It looks like a little claw, and they put it up there and they grab your cervix and they yank a piece out so they can submit it for testing to make sure that the cancer cells or the high dysplasia is gone. And the numbing is just a bunch of it's a load of shit. You feel everything. And, my partner had a vasectomy and we got there, and the moment we got there, they're like, take these pain meds, handed him pain meds before his procedure so that he would be okay. And don't get me wrong, I think it's valid for AMABs to have that option, but I think AFABs should have it too when they're experiencing something like that. A colposcopy is traumatizing in so many ways, not even just physically. As gender non-conforming, it's also very gender dysphoric. I'm just associated, just thinking about it, gender dysphoric, and you're having to deal with parts of you don't necessarily align with. And yeah, it just opens up a whole other box of challenges. So I was going and having colposcopies. I was having them like 3 or 4 times a year. And as I started living cyclically, my body slowly started to feel better. I will never forget my last visit where I was supposed to have a colposcopy. And my doctor literally, while they're in my goods, said, wow. What do I do when my doctor says, wow, looking at my junk? I'm not sure. I just kind of looked at her funny. And she said, it looks like you have a whole new cervix down here. I don't think we need to do a colposcopy anymore. And whatever you're doing, keep doing it. And they switched me back to my regular annual visits, and it's been fine since. I haven't had any signs of cancer, and my body has been doing a lot better. My pain has been a lot better. They told me after having this procedure and going through all of this with my PCOS, again, telling me that I can't have kids. And so, of course, with my naivety, I believed them. And we were done having kids anyways. We were happy with one. And surprise, baby number 2 came, and I wasn't even trying for it, nor was I prepared for it. She is a blessing, and I regret nothing, but it definitely was a surprise. Obviously, the vasectomy procedure came post her. It's just wild just to see how doing little small changes that are actually designed for your body can be so impactful. So impactful. Another thing with PCOS, right? There are actually 4 types of PCOS that all have different root causes. And when I was learning about my hormone health and the type of PCOS I have, it's insulin resistant. And basically, if I continue to ignore it and I don't take any action on it, and I put, if I would have gone down the route that the medical industry had told me to go down of taking birth control or putting Band-Aids on it, I would have never known I had insulin resistance. And that can actually develop into full-blown diabetes later on in life. And making the changes I am now are helping my body to absorb what it needs to absorb out of insulin and the energy instead of storing it, and preventing me from getting diabetes later, which is wild. And we people out in the world don't know this, and especially gender non-conforming AFABs, because we don't even want to think about our bodies. And that's another tangent we're going to go down. Being gender non-conforming, because it's a big part of my business and my mission and what I'm here for. I do my best to make this type of conversation more approachable. And what really bothers me, and I used to be this person as a coach, I used to be this person, love your body, love your body, love your body, right? Yes, loving your body is important. And if you love your body and have a beautiful relationship with your body, I celebrate that. I feel like I would kind of go in and out, before I realized I was non-binary and what was happening and having words for it. I thought I was just having triggers. I don't know. I was coming up with some sort of spiritual excuse for what I was experiencing, spiritually bypassing myself. But gender dysphoria is a real thing. And if that's something you experience, I want to tell you, building a relationship with your body is important. But approaching it from this lovey-dovey, complete alignment approach that we see so much on social media and from other coaches, because our market is oversaturated in people who help AFABs, who identify cis women, help cis women specifically who do align with their body unlock like this fierce confidence. And we look at that like, what, how, I don't even know. And it's intimidating. So we get to start building a relationship with our body from square one. Because not only as AFABs, all AFABs, cis, trans, anything in between, we are taught from the moment we get our cycle that it is to be dreaded, that it's supposed to be painful, and it's supposed to be hushed, and we're not supposed to talk about it. So we are literally taught to hate a very core part of our being. Now add on that layer of not aligning with your body. That's a lot of hate. That's a lot of hate. It's a lot of not wanting to be in your body. And when you start a relationship from hate, you can't just jump to love, right? We can't just say the affirmation, I love my body, because we don't believe it. We may be trying to retrain our brain, and maybe that will work over a really long period of time. I don't know. It didn't really work for me. Some days it felt good, and for me, some days I couldn't even say the words. And what I learned and what I do my best to convey and teach and take you through the experience, not only in my free 2-day experience that I just launched, but I have a cyclical embodiment freedom program that I just launched as well. It's a 6-month group coaching program for gender non-conforming AFABs to have a safe container to be together, to go on this journey of building a relationship with their body. But I do my best to start from square one. How do we go from this relationship of hate and navigate just a little bit, just tip the scale a little bit to a mutually beneficial relationship, right? You didn't choose your body didn't choose you. You don't align with each other, in the way that you identify who you are as a soul, but your body is a vessel that is carrying you through this lifetime. It is. And we get to start to understand that the more that we communicate with our body and treat our body with that mindset, the better that we treat our body, the better that we're going to feel, the better we're going to last in this lifetime to discover more of who we are and to express our soul in the way that aligns with who we are. Our body is just a meat suit. It's just a vessel. But we can still have a mutually beneficial relationship of, body stuck with the soul. Okay, cool. Soul stuck with the body. Okay, cool. What now? And that's where, once we get to that point, that's where the magic happens, right? So once you get to that point and start to unlock that mutually beneficial relationship over time, maybe it turns into a friendship or frenemies. I know for me, it was frenemies for a long time, where some days I felt like I was best friends with my body. even on my gender dysphoric days, I was best friends with my body. And I know that's hard to wrap your mind around and understand, especially if you haven't gotten to that part, but it is possible. And from there, you can tiptoe your way to loving your body. And I know it may sound really far out of reach for some of you. Even if you're not gender non-conforming, you can still have that experience in your body, but maybe not gender dysphoria, because that's a whole different experience. We're not going to compare. But, you know, a lot of times in the media and the way that we're taught that we're supposed to be skinny, but we're supposed to have big boobs, and then we're supposed to have a big butt, but our waist is supposed to be super tiny. We're supposed to look this way, supposed to look that way. We need to diet. We need to lose weight. We have all of these image issues with our body as AFABs. Again, the gender non-conforming just adds that other layer, but it is possible to get to the point of loving your body. And that's what my mission is here, is to teach you the education you weren't taught about your body. Number one, because we are taught a lot of bullshit about our body that's not true. And we get to vanquish that. Vanquish those old stories. We get to unwrite them and learn the proper way that our body actually operates. And it's a fucking superpower. Let me tell you, it is a superpower that we have, that we can unlock at any moment. But they don't want to tell us how, because it's terrifying for people. I could go on a whole tangent about patriarchy, but we'll save that for another day. So it's powerful stuff. Like I said earlier, your cycle is a window into your being, your well-being. You can align with your cycle. For example, there's a time in your cycle. You guys might recognize this. And I will only say this once so you understand the terminology. Your bleed, right? So we're going to call this your new moon or your inner winter, right? Your inner winter is meant to be this time where we rest and eat more. Eat more hearty foods and comfort foods. And the best movement you can do for your body during that time is sleep. And that's the time right there where when we do the opposite, like all those fad diets, we end up gaining weight because our body is storing, because it needs the nutrients and we're not giving it to it. And then that's also, when we go on the opposite end, which is when we ovulate, right? This is going to be our inner summer. That is going to be our full moon, if you want to go by the moon. And that's another thing I do in my program, is we look at different ways to look at your cycle so it's not as dysphoric. When we look at that summer phase, right? It's when we're at our highest energy, and that's when the AFAB methods work for us. And it's a very, very, very short period of time. We're talking like 3 or 4 days. You only ovulate one day, obviously, but that season of high energy, it doesn't last long as we start to then cycle down back to our inner winter. But during that time, the AFAB methods work. And so this is when we get stuck in a cycle. Again, go watch my free course, because I dive all into that and go a little bit deeper. But if you want to align, like, you can align your business, you can align your tasks, you can set yourself up for success by giving yourself permission to rest in your winter. There's so much there. So I'm excited to share more with you in my free 2-day mini course, Vanquishing Your Cycle Pain. That is what it's all about, and unwriting a lot of these stories. We do a lot of work and juicy things in there. Juicy sounded weird. I don't know why I used that word. That made me want to throw up a little. It's fine. We're just going to pause and acknowledge it. I will definitely go back and reflect on why that made me hurt a little. A lot of really good stuff in there. And then, of course, we have my Cyclical Embodiment Freedom, that 6-month group coaching program available as well, where literally I take you through all the baby steps of integrating cyclical living, starting at the smallest level of let's just understand what's going on right now and then get to a point where we can move forward from that. So I am so excited for this chapter and to finally understand my purpose here and how I can serve you. If you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me on social media at the Alyssa Lilly. I'm on all of the different platforms. Again, I'll have all of the links below, and I just want to give you a lot of gratitude and celebrate you for listening to this and just soaking it all in, as well as for those of you who are listening and may be gender non-conforming and have been facing a lot of these issues with your body and what that relationship looks like, or approaching these types of conversations, I just want to pause and say I'm really proud of you. I'm proud of you for getting this far into this episode and for taking the time to think about, because this is where it begins. You just start to think about, how can I exist in this world and finally feel good in my body and stop being told that it's normal. Well, I'm here to tell you it's not normal. You're not supposed to be in pain. And it's possible to have some sort of relationship with your body. And I'm here to support you every step of the way. And our experiences may be completely different, but I see you. And, my gender dysphoria and like I said, my experience is going to be completely different from yours, but I do get it to some extent. So you're not alone. And that's another reason why I designed a group coaching program, because as gender nonconforming AFABs, we are isolated, especially non-binary. We're this weird space where, we're accepted by the trans community, but in some spaces we're not. And if you're AFAB and femme presenting, non-binary, there's like different levels of hate that happen within our own community. And it's a lot. So I'm here if you ever need an ear to listen. And if you need a group, I got you. That's what I'm building here. Okay, wonderful star beings. I am going to sign off now. It is getting late here, but thank you for sitting in this space and just chatting with me. This concludes another episode of our Weaving Magick podcast.
We release one episode a week, so be sure to subscribe to catch the latest episode as soon as it releases. You can find us on Instagram at Weaving Magick Podcast. That's Weaving Magick, Magick Podcast.
We would also love it if you could leave us a review. If you do, make sure to email us your review so we can send you a thank you gift. Thank you so much for joining us, and don't forget to find a way to weave magic into your daily life.